In June 1953, the Triumph TR2 made headlines on the famous Yabeka Highway by attaining over 124 miles an hour in speed trim. High performance indeed for a production sports car of those days. Timed by the Belgian RAC and witnessed by the international motoring press, the car with Ken Richardson at the wheel became what had been planned, the fastest under 2-litre sports car of its price. Powered by a modified version of the already famous Vanguard engine, the new car began to attract the attention of keen rally drivers and clubmen everywhere. And in 1954, a works-sponsored team of 3 TR2s made its debut in the French Rallye des Alpes. Recognized as one of the toughest European events, the route of 2,200 miles led over the mountains of France, Italy, Austria, Germany and Switzerland. From Cortina d'Ampezzo, where overnight the competitors had spent a well-earned rest, the rally in those days set out on the circuit of the Dolomites. The struggle for seconds in the Alps is probably the most rigorous test which driver and car can undergo, and the constant strain on gearbox, transmission and brakes is as unending as the serpentine roads themselves. This was the new Triumph's first attempt on the Alpine, and as the field thinned out with almost every mountain pass, competitors realized the strength of the newcomer's challenge. Against a time schedule calling for the Alpine's average speeds, there's little time for competitors to concentrate too much on the beauty of the mountains. Of 82 starters, less than 40 were still on the road, and the majority of them were in various degrees of trouble. The Triumph TR2s, on their first outing in the Alpine, won 2 of its most coveted awards, the team prize and a Coupe des Alpes for Maurice Gatsonides and Robbie Slottermarker. Le Mans 1955, then as now, the most exacting sports and grand touring car race in the international calendar. Mike Hawthorne, Jaguar's #1 driver, faced the formidable challenge from Germany. Sterling Moss was sharing the #1 Mercedes with Fangio, and wherever Mercedes went, team manager Alfred Neubauer went too. Right from the start, the giants battled for the lead, whilst the Triumph settled down to lap steadily according to their prearranged plan. With less than 2.5 hours gone, at 6:26 precisely, Levesque's Mercedes hit Lance Macklin's Austin Healey, and the flaming wreckage of the German car plunged into the dense crowd of spectators. The 1955 race had brought with it the worst disaster in motor racing history. Drivers, unaware of the magnitude of the tragedy, continued with the job in hand, and Ken Richardson took over the Triumph for his 3-hour spell. But at Tertre Rouge, Les Brook overdid it, and Triumph #68 was firmly embedded in the sand. The Dixon-Sanderson Triumph #28 had been lapping consistently at 90 miles an hour, with the Richardson-Hadley car close behind. But Leslie Brooks' muscular efforts were rewarded, and soon all 3 Triumphs were running once more. The Mercedes team was withdrawn during the night, and the winning Jaguar of Mike Hawthorne and Ivor Bueb set up a new record distance. The three production model Triumph TR2s accomplished exactly what they had set out to do. 3 entered and 3 finished, creditably and without mechanical failure. 1956, the Alpine and the new 100-mile-an-hour TR3s tackled the 30-mile section across the Vivione, considered by some the most treacherous pass of all. On the rough and loosely surfaced road, the car is on the slide for virtually the whole time, and in the blinding dust, it's all too easy to finish up like Jimmy Ray did. On through the valleys of the Dolomites, the same relentless urgency against roads rarely straight, never flat, and frequently unsurfaced. But young Paddy Hopkirk in his Works TR3 revelled in what reminded him of the wilder tracks of his native circuit of Ireland. The unforgettable Cat brothers, too, were part of the team, and the Triumphs were out in force, determined to repeat their success of the previous Alpine rally by carrying off the team award. For although Ken Richardson had retired during the first stage, the 5 remaining TR3s were running unpenalized. Maurice Gatsonides, striving for his 3rd Coupe des Alpes, had time to stop at the summit of the Falzarego and compare notes with teammates Willie Cave and Paddy Hopkirk. The choking dust of the unsurfaced roads proved to be the undoing of the entire Renault factory team, but the TR3s kept soldiering on. For the first time since the war, the Alpine route ran eastwards to Yugoslavia, along the beautiful Dalmatian coast and on to Zagreb. Westwards again over the Julian Alps to Italy and lovely Lake Misurina. But there was still the Stelvio. The 8-mile climb to 9,000 feet was once again a special section with a maximum time set for each class for a flying ascent to the summit. There were bonus marks for the fastest times, and the Triumphs were all out for what they could get, and it was Maurice Gatsonides who made the fastest time in his class. All 5 TR3s were still running unpenalized. Driven by weary men, but in excellent mechanical order, there was little doubt that all would finish. And in 1956, the Triumphs won more awards than any single team in the history of the event, and the silverware was a fair measure of their phenomenal success. With the first 5 places in the class, the team awards, best aggregate times on the special tests, and 5 Coupe des Alpes, the team celebrated their overwhelming victory in traditional style. It was indeed triumph in the Alps. And Tom Wisdom introduces his daughter Anne to the sport in which she too is to earn distinction. With continued competition successes, the Triumphs became firm favorites with enthusiasts everywhere, and in 1957 a party of 74 Americans flew on a charter flight to London Airport to collect the car of their choice, the TR3. This was part of a first ever package deal trip to Europe, which included a 2,000-mile journey through Britain and the continent over routes on which the TRs had already distinguished themselves in international competition. But let not the novice delude himself into thinking that international rallying is easy. Even the most experienced rally driver, when working to the absolute limit, can miscalculate with startling results. Fortunately, on this occasion, no one was hurt. Of course, really fast and consistent cornering is the key, but it's all too easy to lose the lot. Only a driver who has done it knows how it feels. And when rain comes to the circuit, technique comes to the fore. Again, no harm was done, except perhaps to the blood pressure. The 1959 Alpine, and again the Stelvio, perhaps the greatest pass of them all. This time it was a regularity test, but so high were the speeds involved that for most people it was flat out anyway. The Triumph TR3, with its short wheelbase and reserve of power, was ideally suited for this type of climb. But a slight error of judgment by Anne Hall put her a critical 5 seconds the wrong side of the target. Making its debut in international competition, the Triumph Herald was more than holding its own against the mountains and the clock. For the third consecutive year, the Triumph TRs won their class, with de la Jeunesse first and Slottermacher a close second. For the newest stablemate, the Triumph Herald, driven by Tiny Lewis and Tony Nash, a Coupe des Alpes, a rare distinction for any car on its first appearance in a classic event. Pursuing a policy of vehicle testing and development in the heat of fierce open competition, the Heralds joined battle in the 1960 Monte Carlo Rally. A slight midday thaw makes the road treacherous and cornering at speed a dicey business. But the Herald's all-round independent suspension helps adhesion, and Tiny Lewis has time in hand at the Mauriac control. There are no scheduled stops on the Monte, of course, and time out for refueling or a meal must be won against the set average speed. For 4 days and 3 nights over a non-stop road section of 2,300 miles, competitors fight to maintain the target speed of around 1 kilometer in every minute. When the weather is hard, a supreme test of endurance of man and machine through the snow, ice, and sub-zero temperatures of Europe in midwinter. To Le Mans in 1960 came 3 1.9-litre experimental versions of the TR to take part in what the design team considered a routine development test of the first of a new generation of Triumph sports cars. After agonizing moments in a desperately dangerous situation in the middle of the track, Peter Bolton managed to pull away and all was well. From start to finish, throughout the 24 hours, all 3 Triumphs circulated according to plan and crossed the finishing line in line abreast. 3 entered, 3 finished. A convincing display of reliability. In 1961, the Triumph team from Coventry made good its promise of the previous year and returned to Le Mans. The improved Triumphs, now designated TRS, with twin overhead camshaft four-cylinder engines of 1985 cc's developing 150 bhp, were approaching speeds up to 140 miles an hour on the Mulsanne Strait. With a target average of 91 miles an hour, the Triumph drivers were gaining handsomely by lapping steadily at 101. During the 24 hours at Le Mans, each driver meets his partner for but a few brief moments during their changeovers, hence the hurried exchange of technical information. At Tertre Rouge, fortunes can change in a fraction of a second, and the leading Cunningham Maserati is out of the race when lying fifth. A sad blow for Briggs Cunningham, whose Le Mans efforts seemed to win little more than admiration. Ill fortune, too, overtook the North American racing team when their Ferrari succumbed to the terrific pace set by the Rodriguez brothers. After 22 hours of desperate struggle against overwhelming odds, it was a bitter disappointment for the young Mexicans, for they were making up just enough time for it to have been possible to win. Stirling Moss, too, knows how it feels to have been beaten by misfortune. However, once again, the Triumphs continued as an unbroken team, and although there had been moments of anxiety with a broken oil seal, it was now clear that all three would easily cover the qualifying distance. In the tradition established by Triumph at Le Mans, the three TRs crossed the line together, the only complete team of three cars to do so, thereby achieving a target of speed and reliability unequaled in the race. '62 saw the welcome return of Triumphs to the limelight of open competition in the Alpine, a works team of new TR4s. Sutcliffe and Fiddler made fourth fastest time on the Viviani, and the Swiss crew, Tunner and Gretiner, came fifth, 5.5 seconds slower. The TR4s were running in the Grand Touring category, in which a higher standard of performance is of course required than from the series production machines. On the 5-mile climb to the 8,000-foot summit of the Izoard, it was the Swiss pair who beat their teammates. In an event where less than half the field finished the course, the Triumph TR4s on their first appearance took the first 3 places in their class, and Mike Sutcliffe won his Alpine Cup. With an excellent record of past achievements at Le Mans, the Triumph team returned in 1964 with an interesting production prototype, a modified Spitfire with an aerodynamic GT body. But disaster struck early in the race. Mike Rothschild, in a touch with a faster car, crashed by the Dunlop Bridge, but was saved from serious injury by the immensely strong chassis structure. Later, the French-driven Spitfire was eliminated when Manat crashed unconscious from fumes caused by previous damage in a spin. Now, everything depended on the one remaining car, shared by David Hobbs and Robbie Slaughtermarker. The atmosphere was tense as Hobbs took the Spitfire back into the battle. Throughout the race, the car had been lapping consistently at 102 miles an hour, but the responsibility in the closing stages weighs heavily upon the driver. Suddenly, it's all over. 271 laps, 2,273 miles at 94.7 miles an hour. Convincing proof of the Spitfire's speed and reliability. The 1964 Alpine Rally saw a newcomer to the Triumph team with Terry Hunter at the wheel of a Spitfire, using the same development of the 1100cc engine which had done so well at Le Mans. But on a descent such as the Col de la Cayolle, the balance and stability of the car are at a premium. Elusive seconds can be gained by judging distances to the nearest foot and using every available inch of the narrow road to keep the car swinging swiftly and smoothly on its way to yet another victory. Victory 2 in the Tour de France automobile, the last of the series of this marathon event. On the very tight circuit at Pau in the Pyrenees, the Spitfires, with their exceptional road holding, performed brilliantly in appalling conditions. And the partnership of Slottermacher on the circuits and Hunter on the hill climbs resulted in an impressive class win and 5th overall on handicap. The 1965 Monte Carlo rally encountered some of the worst weather in the history of the event. Of 237 cars that started, only 35 survived the blizzards to complete the course, and 3 of these were Spitfires. Simo Lampinen, one-time ice racing champion of Finland, was in his element on the frozen snow, whilst others were not so happy. Robbie Slottermacher hangs the tail way out in the last special test of the road section. Here, Eugen Boehringer, in a very potent Porsche, made fastest time with the Spitfires 2nd and 3rd. The dramatic final tests of the rally were fought through 12 hours of darkness on snow-packed mountain roads. Nearly 400 miles and 6 crucial flat-out special sections, 3 of them over the 5,000-foot Col de Turigny. And the reward for the crowd, prepared to face the rigors of the Alps on a midwinter's night, is a concentrated display of driving technique such as is seldom seen anywhere. The 3 Spitfires finished 2nd, 3rd and 4th in the class. To finish it all in such a year was no mean achievement. In 1965, Sir Donald Stokes led the Triumph contingent back to Le Mans with 4 Spitfires entered in the 1150cc Grand Touring class to be driven by an international team of drivers. David Hobbs and the Dutchman Robbie Slottermacher, the Swiss Jean-Jacques Tunner, the Finn Simo Lampinen with reserve driver Roy Fidland, the Yorkshiremen Peter Bolton and Bill Bradley, and the French pair Piot and Dubois. The target, not the outright win reserved for the large capacity specialized racing machines, but the opportunity to win honor in their class, and above all, to demonstrate and develop high-speed reliability. Seconds are saved by the carefully worked out pit routine, for no matter how brilliant the drivers and how good the car, it's the pit crews who spell success or failure at Le Mans. Peter Bolton's car had blown up on Mulsanne, and Slottermacher escaped unhurt when he crashed at 120 miles an hour during the night. Triumphs were not alone with misfortune. Every car which had made the running in the first 12 hours had been pushed away. But 2 Spitfires remained, and Director of Engineering Harry Webster gets a first-hand account of the car's performance. The presence at the circuit of the men responsible for a car's manufacture is an assurance that the lessons learned today will mean better cars on the roads of tomorrow. Of 51 starters, only 14 finished, and the 2 Spitfires were 1st and 2nd in their class. an achievement of which Sir Donald Stokes and everyone associated with the Spitfires at Le Mans may well have been proud. Continuing the policy of using the rugged proving grounds of international competition for prototype development, Triumphs entered a team of 1300cc prototype Spitfire coupes in the 1965 Alpine Rally. It's on classic hill climbs like the 14-mile timed ascent of Mont Ventoux that valuable lessons of technical development are learned. Power, road holding, brakes, transmission. Controlled experiments on a proving ground are one thing, but the final test is surely in the cut and thrust of open competition, fought on and to the limit. All along the route, discerning continental enthusiasts crowd the vantage points as the rally experts display their techniques. Simo Lampinen is always very fast. And the Swiss pair, Turner and Gretner, are brilliant in this type of country. For the Triumph team, another major Alpine success to add to their ever-growing collection. Lampinen and Ahava led Turner and Gretner by a narrow margin to gain first and second in their category and, of course, the double in their class. (1966), and the Scandinavians were in their element on the Col de Lec, their old familiar of the Monte Carlo Rally. With the road as slippery and treacherous as anyone could remember, it was a snowman's paradise, and the rally cavalcade tackled it with zest. The Triumph team were giving the new 2000 its first outing on the Monte and effectively demonstrated the remarkable road holding of the all-round independent suspension. Some were not so fortunate, but others still in the running pressed on with determination. The Col de Turigny was again the focal point of the final decisive stage of the rally. The leading 60 cars, in the hands now of the world's top rally drivers, stormed over the pass at 10/10 seconds. On the long S bend over the summit, the fast ones are doing well over 60 miles an hour, and you've got to be good to get away with that on ice. To join the select band of finishers at the victory parade is an honor indeed, and time perhaps to reflect on the invaluable store of technical experience won from past victories in the field of international rallies. Time too to take a look at the newest product of the Triumph marque, the TR5, Britain's first production car to be fitted with petrol injection. The larger capacity 2.5 litre engine with 6 cylinders and fuel injection promises a new generation of world sports cars. By controlling the supply of petrol to each cylinder with absolute accuracy under all operating conditions, a more efficient and economic fuel system is obtained. The throttle response is immediate. No hesitation, no flat spots, precisely what the sports car enthusiast demands. And this newest addition to the long line of distinguished cars of the Triumph marque is destined to take its place amongst the leading sports cars of the world.
bucket seats, flashy wheels. This is as close to a real sports car as some people ever get. But others demand the McCoy. The Triumph TR4A lets you know what a real sports car is all about. Big power, 4-speed stick, disc brakes, bucket seats. If you demand the McCoy, see the TR4A at your Triumph dealer. You'll find it alongside the Triumph Spitfire, the new GT6 Fastback, and 2000 sedan. You get only one shot at life. Make it a Triumph. See the yellow pages for your nearest Triumph dealer.
The 25th Monte Carlo Rally, the rally of 1955, followed the traditional post-war pattern in its opening phases. Their choice of the 8 starting points led the 350 starters along their respective itineraries over 1,800 miles of open European roads in the depth of winter at prescribed minimum average speeds of from 31 to 34 miles an hour. All routes converged upon Chambéry in the Maritime Alps, and it was there that the rally started in earnest. As competitors tackled the treacherous Col Bayard after their third night of motoring, the closely guarded secret of what lay ahead had been revealed at the last control. The route before them wound over little-known roads through the mountains and was divided into 5 sections. These were to be covered at average speeds of up to 36 miles an hour for standard cars and 39 miles an hour for modified machines. And apart from a 20-second time allowance at control, failure to maintain regularity against this very tight schedule was to be penalized in marks per second, late or early. A severe test, this, in ideal motoring weather. In the conditions that prevailed, the prospect gave even the most hardened Monte Carlo drivers furiously to think. The road to Gap is not an easy one. And even here, before the special section started, many competitors found themselves with little time to spare. And in fact, penalty points piled up before the intended testing time was reached. The Swedish lady champion, Greta Molander, was this year driving with the strong DKW entry, while Jimmy Ray and Johnny Warwick, both RAC rally winners, were teamed together with a standard 10 and found it thirsty work. For civilized people, of course, it was still breakfast time. But for Mary Walker, it was map reading time, to be sure of no mistake in plotting the secret course. From now on, every second counted. From Gap, the first of the special sections led immediately towards the mountains, and a quick takeoff followed by some maximum speed motoring was the order of the day. Ahead lay 100 kilometers of tortuous road, which included the Col Saint-Jean, the Col de Mort, and the Col de la Bourrée. Those who came early were faced with continuous ice. The later numbers had much better going of it. Stage 2 was comparatively short. 33 miles from La Javie through Digne and into the foothills near the Col de Lec. Less difficult in the closing miles, though the opening climb and descent caused trouble early on. Control C marked the start of the most critical section of all. Only 16 miles long, it involved the notorious Col de Lec, then winding mountain roads all the rest of the way through the village of Barème and on to Saint-Julien. The time stamped by each competitor in his road book at each of these controls was to spell success or failure, and the mathematics involved for the navigator presented a task almost as arduous as that which faced the driver. This time, the mountains beat them all. Not a single competitor defeated his schedule on the Col de Lec. Even with their local knowledge, Mesdames Sicon and Ordioni here faded from the fight for the ladies' prize. But as each competitor tackled this impossible task, he realized that now was the moment of crisis. Now was the time for maximum effort, and the past 3 days and nights of driving had been but the prelude to these, the crucial miles. The scene of previous rally crises, and although conditions had demanded flat-out motoring almost all the time, the mountains concealed a further hazard to the driver's hopes. Secret controls were in operation at strategic points. The struggle to reach the next known control on time was in fact subordinated by the organizers to the task of maintaining a constant average speed throughout the run. The problem proved insoluble in more ways than one. Even the closing miles were not without anxiety, for although the average speeds demanded here were not so high, the road is not an easy one, and there would be neither time nor opportunity for further refueling, tire pressure checks, and all the minor adjustments in readiness for the final eliminating tests once the cars had reached journey's end here at Monte Carlo. The final control by the harbour presents a splendid sight for all concerned. But there's still work to be done by scrutineers and crews alike. The seals, officially placed before the start, must be checked on engine, battery, and one or two other odd places. And this year, tyre numbers were checked to ascertain that no replacements had been made before the car could finally roll away to be guarded in the Parc Fermé. Meantime, at rally headquarters, the huge arrival indicator board is brought up to date, and the progress of each car from control to control is posted up for anyone who may be interested. A who's who of international motoring, but as to what's what, at this stage of the rally, it's impossible to say. At last, the formalities are complete. The drivers relax at their hotels, the pressmen take up the threads of the story, the organizers settle down to their problems, and the road section of another Monte Carlo rally is over. Another return towards the traditional pattern of the rally was this year's reintroduction of the acceleration brake test, staged next day on the curving Boulevard Albert by the start of the Grand Prix course. From a standing start, the test involved a 400-yard sprint to a turn between a pylon and a row of skittles, to include a compulsory reverse in confined space. Then came the 250-yard return run to break over a line. And that was how not to do it. Penalty for hitting the balk line 18 feet beyond the finish or any other post or pylon was disqualification. Here's Ken Richardson demonstrating the handy size of the standard 10. The German Porsches were outstanding in this test, though not in the rally as a whole. That was Hans Dobler. Johnny Walwork displays the skill which has scored him so much success in the past. Sheila Van Dam here improved her position amongst the ladies. Walter Schock makes a run destined to help him toward third place in the rally as a whole. Next day, the battle was rejoined in earnest as the 100 leading competitors in the general classification to date tackled the 200 miles of mountain motoring set out in a cunningly prepared course in the passes and gorges which lie inland of the French Riviera and included the 5,000-foot ascent of the Col de Valberg. Conditions inevitably varied with the change of altitude, but were tricky for almost all the run, and on certain sections were downright dangerous. The test was virtually a continuation of the 5 special sections which led to Monte Carlo. High average speeds varied according to the category of the entrant, and secret controls operated to ensure that the target average speed was maintained throughout the run. But a constant speed in country such as this involves a frantic variation of effort, and even so, the opportunities to take it relatively easy were few and far between. Again, the swiftness of the standard 10s made a great impression on both observers and fellow competitors alike. The latter half of the circuit, after the 4,000-foot climb to La Colmiane, brought mist to add to the driver's cares. But previous Monte Carlo victors, Beccard and Gazzanides, amongst the first cars away, had got well out front by Castillon and were now free of the problem of passing slower cars. Behind them, competitors frequently bunched up between controls, and there was a fair amount of dicing. Madame Pochon, France's hope for the Coupe des Dames, had been off the road. But the standard drivers again found their mounts a handy size for this type of motoring, particularly when it came to tying the bootlaces, as the Frenchman calls his hairpins. As usual, those sporting drivers, the Dutch, were well represented on all types of car. There goes Splinterman, and here's the veteran of many international events, Langerstraat, and this time with a Dina Panna. Tommy Wisdom's been doing the Monty almost since the days when newspapers were written on stone. And Mike Cooper collected his inevitable award later in the Concours. Peter Harper going hard. Very much at home in this setting, we find Sidney Allard and Nancy Mitchell. Roll up, folks, it's the last of the passes, the Col de Braus. And at the end of those 200 miles, fortunes had changed, and the principal awards of 1955 had in fact been won, though still one test remained. And we're all set for the racing driver's delight. Sheila Van Dam knew she was sitting pretty for the ladies' prize, but 5 laps of the 2-mile Grand Prix circuit at Monaco have upset many an apricot in the past. And even an apricot could prove a handful on a surface as slippery as this, at a course which is all tight corners and assorted gradients, and includes the famous tunnel and the chicane on the harbour wall. Here's Walwork approaching the casino with no time to play. The downhill hairpins by the station. British Railways, please note. And so, down to the sea in slips. And here's not fishing, except for motor cars. Lyndon Sims was outstandingly fast as usual, but there goes the winner from Norway. There's Schock living up to his name with a big car, but how's this for determination? You see, he never lifted his foot. And here's another tricky moment coming up. So the leading 100 competitors sorted out their differences in points in 5 events of crowded curves and slippery excitement. And although no vital changes were made to the mountain test results, the Grand Prix circuit lived up to its reputation as being the place for steady nerves and high-speed spectacle. After the tumult and the shouting, this, the fashionable scene on the casino terraces, as competitors parade in the famous Concours of the Monte Carlo Rally. This is a specialist's award, almost a separate event, in fact, for very infrequently has a car won here and also on the road. Called the Road Safety and Comfort Competition, there were 2 prizes to be awarded by the judges under each of these headings, one for both, and a prize for the best radio in a car, attuned to Radio Monte Carlo, of course. And the cars are not the only ones dressed in their Sunday best.